Good evening. Welcome to the Pullman City Council meeting for this Tuesday, October the 18th. Nice to have all of you here tonight. And with that, Dee, would you please take roll?
Mayor Johnson.
Present.
Councilmember Benjamin.
Present.
Councilmember Dubin.
Here.
Councilmember Guido.
Here.
Councilmember McCall.
Here.
Councilmember Parks.
Here.
Councilmember Weller.
Present.
Councilmember Wright.
Here.
Under announcements tonight, tomorrow night at 5:15 in these council chambers, you can join the Pullman Community Branding Public Input Session, provide your feedback to help kickstart the city's rebranding effort. This is one of several focus groups that are taking place to ensure the new brand reflects the vibrance and passion of the Pullman community. I guess if I said a branding effort in Wyoming, it would be meaning something different, Cattle. Later tonight, as part of our regular agenda, the council will consider adding an Environmental Resilience Commission. Before we get there, we're asking now for the final call for applications for Planning Commission and Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee. I counted the applications for the latter group tonight. We had 13. Toughest thing is going to do to find 7 because they're all look very well qualified. So please apply on the city website by the end of the month for consideration. Again, we're going to close the applications as of the end of the month. And it's really nice to be able to say something like that in the past. We have not had these kind of applications before. There's a lot of enthusiasm for it, and I thank all those who applied. On September 27th, the City Council approved a utility rate increase of 4.5%. Customers will see the increase reflected in their November utility bill. You can find more information on the city's website under Utility Services. Pullman Police Department wants to see your Halloween spirit. You can drop by the police station on October 30th and 31st to show off your costume and collect some sweet treats. Our police chief is in the back of the room. That's not the costume. He's not going to be wearing that one tonight. Okay. But you'll be ready for that one, right, Jake? Okay, good. Crews are removing playground pieces from Sunnyside Park to make room for the brand new equipment coming in a few weeks ahead. So please avoid playing in or around the playground areas under construction and look out for any new attractions to arrive. Krugel Park picnic area is being removed, where the new concrete pad will be poured before winter, and the new shelter should be under construction starting the spring of 2023. The Spooky Splash, a family-friendly Halloween event to rival the police department's one, will be held at the Aquatic Center on October 28th from 6 to 9 p.m. Expect underwater maze, on-deck treasure hunt, and more. Please register at the city's website for that. We also have a few more announcements. Resurfacing on Center Street in City View is finishing up and will officially reopen tomorrow. We're happy to report that one. The repair and reconstruction of Pioneer Hill neighborhood sidewalks expected to conclude by the end of the week. And you can go online right now and see when the residential leaf pickup will take place. I'll give you a hint. Sunnyside Hill, November 7th through the 9th. Pioneer Hill, 10th, 14th, and 15th. Military Hill, November 16th and 18th. And College Hill, November 21st and 23rd. If you didn't catch that, you can check our website. Our next item on the agenda tonight is a confirmation of appointments. And this is for our Salary Commission for elected officials and confirmation of appointments. And you see we're recommending Helly Carnahan, a business owner, Joe Pitzer, a realtor, Rob Rembert, attorney at law, Karen Sires, our retired human resources manager, and William Weatherly, our retired police chief, for that commission. And I will entertain a motion at this time.
Move to accept as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And with that, we can now start working on the salaries for the city council and for the mayor for that point. Next comes our presentations tonight, and we have a special presentation from Pullman Regional Hospital on the bond issue, and we have the all-star lineup here tonight. We have Dr. Ed Tinkstead, Dr. Stephanie Fosbach, and Steve Mader. And so we'll turn the microphone and the PowerPoint over to you right now. And thank you for being here, and thank you for what you mean to this community. We really appreciate it.
Can you guys hear us okay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. My name is Ed Tinkstad.
I'm Stephanie Fossback. Thanks for having us.
We just wanted to share briefly and hopefully get your thoughts about a few things if that's possible. As you all know, many of you in the room have been around for a long time, and Megan has been in the hospital probably more than anybody in this room. Since 2004, we've been blessed with a wonderful facility that is the center of excellence for healthcare in our region. And we have Stephanie, who is one of the Northwest's top physicians in the entire Northwest, who serves our community. She is ranked in the highest levels of care throughout our whole region. She wins awards for teaching. We have a team of physicians that we can compare with any locale on the West Coast. And we want to thank you for that. We want to thank you for giving us a great place to work. Built in 2004, our hospital is about 95,000 square feet. In the 18 years since it was built, it's been remodeled 18 times. We continue to look for ways to place people in spaces to allow them to do their jobs. We have attracted great physicians like Dr. Lee, who has a wealth of pediatric experience, as well as many other subspecialty providers that really help a broad variety of people in our community. Our hospital is trying to grow its surgical expanses. This morning when I walked in the operating room, we have 2 new anesthetists. They're in their late 20s. They change in the bathroom stall because their locker is in the bathroom stall. They don't have a locker. They don't have any place to put their clothes. And there are 4 of them sharing the bathroom stall for their locker. There are nine lockers in the bathroom stall. And so we've run out of space. We've attracted Dr. Nandini. She is a sleep provider, a sleep specialist, been board certified. Getting people like this to Pullman, she doesn't have enough space to be able to do her job. And for those of you who have sleep issues, give her a call. She's wonderful. Nobody has sleep issues, I'm sure, but we have a very good group of primary care providers, and Stephanie can attest to the quality of care that we're able to provide. Dr. Adkins, pictured here, has been kind enough to serve in all kinds of locations, and so we're very fortunate. We have volleyball coaches who actually asked for money for the hospital for us. We feel very fortunate that so many people are willing to help build our cause. During COVID, this is Anna. Anna is one of our remarkable nurses, and she and the entire community gathered around, as we all know, and did wonderful things. Stephanie basically led the COVID response to our region, and that was the marker of care. We were the center of excellence for COVID care in the entire Eastern Washington region, and so we want to say thank you for that, for letting us serve in that way. And we want to thank Stephanie for, you don't know how many hours she spent. So we have a residency coming. We have a nice space for them. But we had a GI doctor visit recently, and he walked through the hospital with me and he goes, well, where would my office be? And I said, well, you might have to share it with me. And he goes, I don't know if I want to do that. And the point being is that we are really running out of space just to put people. And for those of you who know Dr. Katie, Dr. Hernjevitz is very busy tonight. I was hoping she could be here. She too is another example of a wonderful young person that could practice anywhere, but she chooses to practice here. The Citizens for Pullman Regional Hospital have raised money. We've donated our own money. We've reached out to the community, and so we are hoping to give you better access to our facilities, but we need your help. We're asking the community to consider a bond on November the 8th that would raise $27.5 million. And that is about 60% of the money needed in the $45 million bond to expand our facilities. And so the breakdown of that largely comes to the fact that over the last 18 years, we have 10 to 12,000 more people and the same hospital size. For those of you who know Tony Poston and his family, Tony is the example of, hey, Ed, how can we help, give you a place to put people? And so it's been really a blessing to watch. Pat shows up every Wednesday morning downtown and encourages everybody by how we can do things. And so the community has rallied around this. These are the things that the expansion would add to. And you can read faster than I can speak them to you, but we need all these areas desperately. The original plan was for $105 to $115 million bond. When they looked at the actual needs, it was $115 million. This has been pared down as far as we can to get it. And we know this is a really hard time to ask for things, but we would be remiss because we need these things now. We're hoping that you won't have to wait 3 months to see Dr. Fosback. We hope that getting people in the emergency room, we won't put sticky notes on the wall saying you're in bed 14. Stephanie will share her experiences with that. But it largely gives people quicker and better access to health care. We'd ask if you'd be willing to support us, help us to spread the message that please vote. Please vote on November 8th. And so we even have a group of university athletes who have said, Doc, I'll help you guys get the vote out. They even registered to vote. So it's a really nice thing. And with that, I'll let Stephanie share.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to the needs of Pullman Hospital. I'm going to steal a little bit from Dr. Katie. One of the things that she said that really resonated with me in one of our talks was what brought her to Pullman and her family to Pullman was the excellence of this community. And I think some of the measures of an excellent community are schools, are hospitals. And to reiterate what Dr. Tingstad said, our hospital is incredible. We give incredible care. We're a stroke center. That's really remarkable. The emergency room physicians really champion that. We are recognized for primary care outcomes. Our Pulse Medical has been named 4 years in a row, #1 for Kaiser Permanente for outcomes. We give awesome care. We're going to keep giving awesome care, so I don't want to say, like, if we don't get our bond, we're not going to give awesome care. But the delivery of that care gets limited when we don't have the right space. Dr. Tingstad talks about my personal story. My daughter had an illness and went to the emergency room last fall. She's fine, but she ended up in the hallway, and she got excellent care, but probably not in the best space. And a 12-year-old can be relatively traumatized by being in the hallway of an emergency room. There are lots of things that, you don't really want her to have to experience. So we do see that every time I'm on call. I see the sticky notes on the hallway, and you walk through the laboratory, and the people who are sitting in the laboratory have machines underneath their feet where they're working. And so if you have the choice to work in a state-of-the-art laboratory or to be sitting sharing a space with whatever gizmo you're trying to work on, especially in these times of staffing shortages, you're probably not going to choose that space where you're crammed. And so this would really help Pullman Hospital to create more space, to create a better work environment for the people who are working there, but most importantly, to create a better space for patient care. Because that's really what everybody is here for. Nobody in this community who provides medical care is here for anything fancy. We really want to just take great care of patients and continue to do so. So we really ask for your endorsement. This is a really difficult time for families, and I do not want to be tone deaf to that. I do primary care, so a lot of what I see are people who are struggling, and so I want to make sure that people understand that we know this is a big ask, but for the health and wellness of our community, it's a really important ask right now. So thank you for taking the time to hear me speak.
You just, excuse me, I'm Steve Mater, but you just heard from the best there is the case for the Pullman Regional Hospital tonight. I couldn't add anything to that, except from a businessman's perspective. We've watched Pullman grow. I've lived here 40 years, and we've watched Pullman grow in many, many areas, and the growth of this town is really remarkable, especially in the education realm. The schools are just second to none across the state, nearly. And also the community has really stepped up in many areas of growth, including City Hall, where we stand here tonight. The hospital's no different. The community supported it well in 2004 or 2003 when the first bond was done. And it's time for an expansion, as you've just heard. We've had great cooperation from a tremendous staff and an administration that has used the current facilities to its fullest. There's simply no more options without more space. So I'm standing here tonight in front of you to ask you to endorse the hospital and this proposal for a vote on Proposition 1 to expand the hospital. It is pared down. It has been before the voters twice before. This is pared down. It's not as much as was asked for in the first place, but the ones that have done the work don't feel like we can live with less in this expansion. So the dollars are a real critical issue. I really weighed the risk of standing and supporting the regional hospital when it comes to the tax base because of the times we're in. A $300 evaluation home will cost the taxpayer $29 a month. That's a lot of money for people who are already short. My offset to that is only this, that if you have to travel for services outside of the community, you will spend more than $29 a month for that travel. I know that doesn't impact everyone until they need services that are health related, and we don't have them in Pullman, Washington. So respectfully, I would ask you as a council to give us your endorsement. We're getting other endorsements, including the Realtors Association, and I was surprised at it, but they're willing to endorse it because it's adding to a strong, healthy community for our real estate market. So that's what we're in, and I'm very glad to announce that they have that endorsement. So with that, if you have any questions for myself or the doctors, we'd be willing to take their questions.
Any questions? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to say I appreciate your presentation, and I think this is a no-brainer. I think this community needs it, and I think this is a true equalizer for like the entire community. This benefits every single person, and when I think of the potential of someone being sent away, it scares me because there's just simply no more space or no more availability. I know these are tough times, and I know it's hard to ask for this money, but I don't think it's going to get better. I think this is the very best time to ask, and not to mention this is all part of our council goals and so much more. And because of that, I'd like to make a motion that we endorse the Pullman Regional Hospital bond for Proposition 1.
Thank you so much for hearing us tonight.
I hear a second. Now, further discussion.
I just wanted to make a comment real quick here. I completely agree with Becky, and just for people out there. You know, having grown up here, I was actually born in the old hospital over by WSU. Traveled plenty, all of that. But I came back here because it is such a great community. The hospital is one of the many examples. And just to tell you how important this is, I was sitting at dinner with my mom, my dad, family friend, and they all said, and they're in their, late 60s, early 70s, they said, You know, if they need door knockers, we will be out there. My mom's in a walker, you know, willing to knock on doors. So I think it's important that you came here. It means a lot. So I absolutely, yes, I agree. I support this.
We'll go to Ann next.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, doctors and Mr. Mader, for coming before us tonight. You know, when we talk about quality of community and all of the wonderful things that Pullman has, healthcare is a big part of it. I have a friend who has just recently moved back to the area, and what I tell people is we have high-quality healthcare, but you don't get lost in the system. And that's really important, especially when you need health care. It doesn't matter what age you are. You can need health care in your 30s or your 70s or anywhere in between. And I've had some recent experiences at the hospital myself as a patient, and it is just amazing. It's like you're the only person there, the quality of care that you get. So I do think it's an important part of the quality of our community, which we as a council work hard to maintain and continue. So thank you.
Okay, Megan next.
Well, thank you for coming, and I'm obviously a huge fan of Pullman Regional, having worked there for close to 25 years and had the privilege of working with Dr. Teenstad and Dr. Fosbach, as well as our medical staff. Just recently had an experience with a family member in the emergency department, so am reminded that it is a small space. Although I will endorse it as a city council person, I do want to just express that, you know, you mentioned it as far as the times right now and asking folks right after there was an increase in water and sewer and, you know, property taxes and all of the other things that impact people. I don't want to be tone deaf to that, and I do have concerns about that. Over $300 a year can be a significant ask for a family. So with that, and having worked on the two other bonds that didn't pass, I appreciate that this has been pared down, and you're looking at just basically the space issue. So just wanted to express that, and thank you for coming.
Okay, Francis.
Thank you. I appreciate your presentation and your heart as you expressed that a lot of time and energy went into thinking about you know, whether or not to actually go for a bond again and considering where our community is at, but at the same time understanding incredible need. And one of the things that you didn't talk about is that coming out of the pandemic, we learned really quickly in the midst of that we couldn't always rely on the outside. And you know, our model had always been, we'll handle some things, but we'll send everybody out. But we realized that there's more people that are trying to send people to us and have us, you know, care for them, that we weren't able to send out the way we had imagined that healthcare would be like. And so I feel it's critical that if we really want to provide the excellent care for our community, that this is something that we support looking at the future. And I did appreciate Councilmember Dubin's comment about the equalizer, that there's a lot of bonds that can be put out there where it's going to benefit one group within the community, but this is one that is actually going to benefit everybody within the community. So it's something that I feel is very important, and I appreciate that you're here and would definitely encourage people to vote for the bond.
Pat.
I just want to thank all three of you for joining us tonight. Serving on this committee with these individuals has just been an absolute privilege. And what I've learned from that is the passion and the desire to make health care even better than what we already have. And the only way that we can truly do that is through this bond measure passing. Dr. Teenstad referenced we've been in the current facility for 18 years, and we've had 18 remodels. Well, we've done a lot of those remodels with smoke and mirrors, and we're out of without smoke and mirrors. I mean, we're down to it. But I know a number of people have heard me say this before, our Pullman Regional Hospital is one of the jewels in our crown. And it is one of the reasons that people are not only staying here, used to be a long time ago, well, not that long ago, but at least 10, 15 years ago, that the exodus was greater than the arrivals. And that's not the case now. And we have people coming back to Pullman that left for a variety of other reasons. And one of the draws, again, is the excellent nature of the health care that we can afford our residents. And so I can only, again, suggest that we know the price is high, but this is as high as it's going to be. If we wait to do it, it's only going to be that much higher. And if we're still able to draw people here as a result of providing a better level of health care, we can offset some of those costs because as we have the growth coming in, the tax rates go down. So that's, one of the fiscal aspects of how these bonds work. And so again, the three of you, I thank you so much for joining us tonight and sharing your vision and your passion, and we appreciate you all. Thank you.
And again, thank you very much for being here tonight and making this presentation. I know that I had a one-on-one with Steve Mader a while back in the mayor's office, and I threw a lot of questions at him, and he says, good, I have some things to present before the council to take care of those arguments. And you did a very good job of that. And I'm with you on this one here. I signed the loan issue when I was the president of the board when we built the hospital, and this is a wonderful facility that we have, wonderful doctors that we have, and we certainly want to keep that and we want to expand it. So thank you very much for answering my concerns, and I appreciate your presentation, Ed and Stephanie, very much, and thank you so much for your service to this community. With that, thank you very much. And we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? City Council endorses it. And that's not a usual thing, too. Usually the chamber will do it, but the City Council endorsed it tonight. So that shows full respect for all of you. Okay, thank you. With that, we move now to the second presentation tonight, and that's the mayor's proposed 2022-23 budget. May not be as entertaining as the hospital bond, but here it comes, okay? So I'm pleased to present Pullman's 2023-2024 biennial budget, which reflects our best possible projections for the next few years, still assessing the impacts of a worldwide pandemic on inflation, supply chain issues, and an underlying urge by many to make up for those lost years by increasing their expenditures. Since my last budget message 2 years ago, the city has experienced, on a smaller scale, what is happening nationally. Due to retirements and individuals seeking employment elsewhere, this budget reflects the input of 14 new department managers working as a team under the very capable leadership of City Administrator Mike Urban, who before his promotion was our outstanding finance director. With our finance director moving with her family to the Midwest, much of the work in this budget fell upon Urban. I wanted everyone to know how much we appreciated his dedication and all the extra hours, time away from family, expertise in the formulation of this budget. We spent many hours with our department leaders looking at their needs and their projected expenditures over the next several years. There was no doubt that in many cases the justification for additional staff was there, but the anticipated revenue was not. We assured the departments, however, that we will continue to monitor the revenue picture in the months ahead, and if there is a dramatic improvement to the projected revenues, we can react accordingly and, when justified, submit a budget adjustment to the council. As we comply with the state law to meet our budget deadlines, I want to remind the readers that we are facing a variety of challenges to this budget in the years ahead. We are aware of some of the unknowns, and we made the best possible projections with the daily news of the economy impacting everyone's guess as to what those numbers might be in 2024 or even next year. For example, during this budget cycle, We'll be meeting and negotiating with 6 union bargaining units dealing with contracts that are or will be expiring from 2021 to 2024. As a city, we contracted with an outside firm to do a salary survey of non-represented employees, and we are expecting that report within the month. Every day, our employees see the same advertisements that we do, trying to find workers through a variety of area job fairs or attempting to lure candidates through a signing bonus. We are fortunate to have an excellent and well-trained staff, and we want to keep them, and therefore, after we receive the recommendations from the consultant, we intend to bring budget amendments to the council reflecting their conclusions and what we believe we can afford and sustain. The City Council voted to create a commission to determine the salary of the council members and the mayor in the immediate future. Work on the budget has delayed the recruitment of those members of the Salary Commission, though we have secured several volunteers who are willing to serve, and we added a few more before tonight's meeting, before I had this written. Add to those factors the price of just doing business, projects being delayed because of supply issues, and contractors trying to cover inflation by hiking the price of a project well above the engineering estimates. And you have a few of the challenges that we've been dealing with the formulation of this budget. The city has experienced some dramatic cost increases from some of our partner agencies over the past several years, and that too is reflected in the budget. The county auditor has continued to hike the price of elections. For example, in 2018, we were billed $30,985 for elections, and that price went to $117,931 in 2021. In 2023, 5 council members and the mayor will be up for election. We tried to project that expense, not knowing what the county will bill. Court costs have increased 10.2% from 2022 to 2024, despite a cordial rental agreement we provided the county, especially during the courthouse renovation. Our Whitcomb expense continues to escalate as the 911 center attempts to find emergency operators by boosting salaries and offering bonuses to secure workers. Those costs are reflected in both police and fire budgets. And then there's insurance. Our liability insurance we are projecting at $1,194,535 for 2023. That's up from $453,350 in 2018. For 2023, we are estimating the general fund revenue at $27,831,168. And the operation expenditure is projected to be $28,712,232. For 2024, we are estimating the revenue to be at $25,853,501, and expenditures to be projected at $28,782,043. Looking back to previous budget messages, we have balanced our budget using reserves, and we are doing that again. Our track record so far has been excellent, even when experiencing a pandemic, and in those years, we have proposed a budget reserve that was roughly in the 12% range. Our last biennial budget was built using 2 months of reserves, or 16.67%. The reserves in this budget are slightly more than 13%, which meets the council's long-established goal, proven over the years through some major challenges, to be more than adequate to run the city. This could not be done with any confidence without the outstanding cooperation of a great city staff and department managers who control their budgets, an exemplary finance staff, a responsible city council and administration that rejects tempting requests and proposals using short-term revenues for long-term commitments. As I look back at my previous mayor's budget message in 2020, I mentioned that we had not settled on the eventual disposition of the old City Hall. At this time, it's being used by the Whitman County District Court, and even more so during the reconstruction of the county courthouse in Colfax. The police department is growing short of space, and their existing headquarters is now using space in the old City Hall. The business side of our maintenance and operations division, short on space where they're located on Guy Street, will soon be in that building. The bond issue that helped us remodel our new City Hall and provide much-needed recreation facilities for our residents and provide funds for the acquisition of land for a third fire station. A study by the fire department determined the ideal location for that third station, and that narrowed the site to some Washington State University property. The city has received agreement from WSU to perform a feasibility study for the proposed location. It may seem that it's taking longer than anticipated, but it also reflects the post-pandemic environment as we continue to experience projects being delayed by supply chain issues, in many cases, an unfavorable bidding climate. Despite these challenges, we are encouraged by the excitement we have seen by new and established businesses and the community over the $9 million investment from the federal COVID-19 funds the City Council authorized to renovate, rejuvenate, and reinvigorate our downtown. Consultants were hired, input from the community was achieved, designs are in progress with construction slated for the summer of 2023. Pullman businesses moved forward, created an association, and hired an executive director funded only through this budget by the city and WSU. The public, and especially our children, will see new and safer playground equipment that has been ordered for most of our city parks. The council approved using some of the money set aside for the garden house at Lawson Gardens for much-needed playground improvements. The lowest bid for the Lawson Garden addition far exceeded our budget, and in consultation with the council, determined the need for such a facility had diminished with the addition of other resources in our area. Listening to requests from our residents, a new restroom will be built this summer at Lawson Gardens. I want to thank our wonderful community and support we have received. We experienced together a variety of challenges through a pandemic, and now as we get through experiences in the post-era. We heard many positive comments from our outside tourism and promotion consultants of how impressed they were of the insightful comments they received from the community as we continue to work together to make Pullman an even better place to live, work, study, and do business. And with that, you can see ahead of time we're going to be having budget hearings coming up on Tuesday, November 1st at 6 p.m., Monday, November 7th at 6 p.m., and you can see in your council agenda is what we're going to be going over as far as those budgets are concerned. And then Tuesday, November 29th, normally scheduled, the City Council meeting staff is recommending the City Council take action and adopt the 2022-23 budget if they believe they have adequate time to discuss, deliberate, and achieve, and that's the 23-24 budget, I believe. And with that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting of the City Council and convene the meeting of Special Metropolitan Parks District. At this time, I would entertain a motion to dispense the reading of the minutes of the Metropolitan Park District for September 27th.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You've heard the mayor's proposed budget. I do not have to read that again. Mike, do you want to go over the deadlines on the Metropolitan Park District? This will be the same as we just did for the City Council.
Yeah, absolutely. Those meetings will mirror what we're doing here with the in and the out for some of the council members that haven't been through this before. And same deadlines, we're going to keep with the same calendar because it just makes the most sense.
Okay. With that, I will adjourn the meeting of a special meeting of the Metropolitan Park District and reconvene the meeting of the Pullman City Council. And with that, we now come to item number 3, the
Mayor.
Fire Department course complete. Yes.
May I
Ann?
just say one thing, please?
Yes.
I would just like to especially recognize our city administrator, Mike Urban. He has put in so much time, more than just inside business hours, evenings, weekends, and he has worked really hard, and he's also kept the council updated step by step as far as his progress, and he had this to us in time for tonight, before tonight's meeting. And I just want people to understand that a city administrator is the manager of the city, but he actually has been spending a lot of time on this, and he has a finance background, and there's been some loss of finance employees, and so I just really appreciate, Mike, that you took this on and just ran with it and make sure it got completed with the help of your staff. So thank you.
Again, pointed that out in the first paragraph because I knew it was so important. And Dee, also thank you for assembling the booklet for tonight too, and we had a lot of great help from our staff too. With that, we now go to item number 3, course completion, professional designation presentation. Fire Chief Mike Heston.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and I also echo the work that our city manager's done on the budget too, so there's a lot of hours going into that. So, all right, can I have Steve Potratz and Patrick Fitzgerald come up, please? Have you guys stand over there. So it's my honor to present the fire officer designation to these acting firefighters, acting officers Stephen Potratz Lee and Patrick Fitzgerald, both paramedics. It's held by the Commission on Professional Credentialing through the Center of Public Safety and Excellence, is what the fire department strives for. These are only 2 of 664 fire officers internationally in the world. So these are the first 2 gentlemen to accomplish this for our department as the fire officer designation. And to do that, they had to complete a large portfolio to highlight their education, their experience. They had to highlight their professional affiliations and their technical competence. So, and these are the first 2 in our department. So I have plaques for these individuals. Don't go away.
Congratulations.
And then the other award I have is to the Managing Officer Program. So it's kind of like a mini executive fire officer program that I went through for 4 years. So Captain Mark Johnson. So it's a 2-year program through the National Fire Academy. And they took classes on leadership, community risk reduction, firefighter and community safety, as well as contemporary training issues, how to solve them, resolve those, and decision-making tools as well. So Mark had to do a capstone project for this, and his project is on upgrading our firefighter annual evaluations. So that's a high task that we're still working on. And Mark's the 3rd officer to complete this in our department. So we've had 2 others, Lieutenant Volk and Captain Chavaris both, and we still have 2 more officers that are just about done as well, finishing their capstone projects. So we have 5 members doing this program, which is outstanding for a fire department this size. So Mark, with that. Mark's is a little fancier. It's kind of like an EFO. So Mark, congratulations. All right. Thank you, Council.
Congratulations. Thank you again. Item E is any person that's going to make any comment on the agenda tonight involving a final item, something we take final action on. I'll entertain that right now. It's only on items that we're going to take final action on tonight. Okay? Seeing none, I will close that. We now move to the consent agenda. These items are considered routine in nature. The council's had a chance to study these ahead of time. Do I hear a motion to read by title only?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, our city attorney, Tad O'Sullivan.
The first one is a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes of the regular meeting of September 27, 2022, and approve them as submitted. Number 2 is a motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks numbered 108045 through 108053, electronic transfers 7980 and 916 through 920, payroll direct deposits numbered 79754 through 80098, and voiding 79867 totaling $900,097 $30.02. Number 3 is a motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks numbered 108054 through 108099 totaling $1,375,889.82. Number 4 is a motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks numbered 108157 through 108183 totaling $2,334.86. Number 5 is a motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks numbered 108184 through 108201, electronic transfers 81, 82, 915, and 921 through 926, payroll direct deposits numbered 80099 through 80447, totaling $1,460,615.08. Number 6 is a motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks numbered 108202 through 108291, totaling $832,962.36. Number 7 is a motion to approve the transfer of sales tax revenue tax revenue to CIP Reserve Fund for 2022 Q3 in the amount of $351,969. A motion to ratify change order number 1 to the Terraview Roundabout at North Fairway contract. And finally, number 9, resolution number R-63-22, a resolution authorizing the submittal of operating and capital assistant grant applications to the Washington State Department of Transportation for Pullman Transit.
Any item the council would like to offer discussion? Seeing none, the consent agenda consists of items 1 through 9. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, we now move to the regular agenda tonight. And first of all, we have an ordinance amending the zone classification from C2 to R2 at 205 and 215 Southeast Paradise Street. But before we begin, it's time for the appearance of fairness questions. Megan, we're going to start with you tonight. Okay? Does any member of this council have knowledge, having conducted business with either the proponents or opponents of this proceeding?
No.
No.
Make
No.
sure you have your mics on, too.
No.
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 Has any member of the council communicated with any proponent or opponent regarding the proposal that is subject to this proceeding?
No.
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 Does any member of this council have either a financial or personal interest in the outcome of this proceeding?
No.
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 Does any member of this council know whether or not their employer has a financial interest in this matter or has an interest in the outcome of this proceeding?
No.
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 Does any member of this council live or own property within 300 feet of the area which is subject to the proceeding?
No.
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 Does any member of this council have any special knowledge about the substance or merits of this proceeding which would or could cause the council member to prejudge the outcome of this proceeding?
No.
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 Is there any member of the council who believes that he or she cannot sit here and hear the matter fairly and impartially, both as to the respective positions of the proponents and opponents of the proceeding?
No.
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 And is there any member of the audience who, because of the appearance of fairness doctrine, wishes to disqualify any member of the council from hearing this matter? If so, please state the name of the council member and the reason or reasons why you believe this member should be disqualified because of the appearance of fairness. Seeing none, the floor is now yours, RJ.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, City Council. This item before you on the agenda is an ordinance to change zoning for 2 parcels located at 205 and 215 Southeast Paradise. The requested zone change is from C2 Central Business District to R2 Low Density Multifamily Residential. As you can see on the map on the screen and included in your packet for this evening, the 2 parcels under consideration this evening are in black. The pink or the purple parcels area is the C2 zoning district. The yellow is the R2 residential zoning district. For the location, this is at the southeast corner of the intersection of High Street and Paradise. You may recognize the single-family dwelling located at 205 Southeast Paradise as the Seasons House Restaurant and Event Center. I did some brief research on that location, as I know it's got some considerable interest. Depending upon where you get your information, the house was built in either 1892 or 1901, so I couldn't narrow it down, but either one or both could be accurate. The Daily News originally had an article converting this house from a dwelling to a restaurant as early as 1970. So it's been in a restaurant event space ever since. The Daily News also had an article having it closed as a restaurant in 1999, and then purchased once again in 2016 as an event space. And I believe it has been closed for at least a couple, 2 or 3 years since then. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on this item during their regularly scheduled meeting, September 28th, 2022. Applicant testimony was heard from 2 individuals, the owner, Nick Pistolonis, sorry, Nick, and Alessandra Ferris. There were 2 individuals that also spoke that evening as neutral parties. There was nobody in opposition to this zone change. The Planning Commission voted unanimously in favor of a recommendation of approval of a zone change from C2 to R2. Are there any questions of the council?
Questions of council? Seeing none.
Other than the map is upside down.
Is there any other comments, or would you like to make a motion on this?
Move to adopt.
Second?
Moving second. Thad, do you want to read it?
Ordinance number 22-21, an ordinance amending the zone classification from C2 to R2 for the real estate described located at 205 and 215 Southeast Paradise Street.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Continuing on with the resolution now.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, this next item is a resolution that would accompany the previous item. This resolution would change the comprehensive plan map designation for these 2 parcels from commercial to low-density residential. Are there any questions on this item?
Seeing none, do I hear a motion?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moving second. Thad, do you want to read this part?
Resolution number R-64-22, a resolution amending the official comprehensive plan map of the city of Pullman from commercial to low-density residential for the locations of 205 and 215 Southeast Paradise Street.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Item number 3 is an ordinance creating the Environmental Resilience Commission and other matters related thereto. We'll start with Mike Urban.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. Before you is ordinance number 22-22 for your consideration, creating the Environmental Resilience Commission under a new chapter 1.59 of the city code. In September of 2021, the Pullman City Council adopted a goal to create a body for an action item around climate and sustainability. This product is the outcome of that. We began meeting in March of 2022 all the way through August of this year. Spent some time assembling the ordinance in September to get in front of you here in October. Very similar to the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging item that we brought to you previously, as we've set up some initial mission, vision, and goals for the commission to consider. I'd like to thank really the hard work of the task force that got together, help assemble this. Councilmember Nathan Weller was council's representative to that group. Judy Muth, Jody Prout, Nathan Enos, and McCormick. A lot of really great input from these folks. We spent a lot of time talking about the future of this community. And to the point, the Environmental Resilience Commission was the recommendation from the task force to name this group, very specifically, long discussed item. So with that, we ask you to consider the recommended action of moving this forward and adopting the ordinance and allowing staff to start advertising for interested folks to become part of the first ever Environmental Resilience Commission, and then disband the task force.
Okay, comments?
Move to approve.
Just had a real quick comment.
Okay.
I think it's important to mention that not only did we look at the future regarding the community, but also the past. There was a lot of discussion on the First Peoples in our area and our region and representation from that. So think it's important for everybody to understand that as well. So, thank you.
Okay. Francis, you had a question?
So I had one question and then one statement, and Mike, if you can help me on this. If I look at within the description, it's talking about equity, but at the same time, we have a DEI committee. Is there going to be any conflict between the two committees where we have one that's specifically for equity and this one, they've added equity into their charge? And just whether you see any conflict.
I don't. There was a lot of discussion in the last meeting about the equity piece in particular and how it had its special purpose here when talking to environmental resilience. And I think as we go forward and talk about equity in our organization, we can't talk about it enough.
Okay, I'm just saying because the DEI committee specifically, they're tasked with the equity piece. And so I just want to make sure that there's not a conflict in that way. And then the second thing I had is just more of a statement. Within here, they've listed their goals, but the expectancy is for every one of these goals that they're working on, they're going to bring back their recommendations to the council for council approval of any policy or direction that they feel is the direction to go, similar to the DEI committee.
Correct. This serves as a group to advise the council.
Great, thank you.
On further. Yeah.
And I don't know if you have a second, but
I don't have a
I've
second
given you a
yet.
second.
Okay, you've got a second. Would you like to read the ordinance?
Sure.
Ordinance number 22-22, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Pullman, Whitman County, Washington, relating to Title I Administration, creating a new Chapter 1.59 Environmental Resilience Commission, and other matters properly related thereto.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, matter carries. I can also tell you that RJ and I have already recruited for this commission because I was invited to speak to the Pullman High School Environmental Committee. We met after classes at 3 o'clock a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted RJ to join with me because he deals with a lot of things involving the environment. And we had a great time for an hour speaking with the students and suggesting that they come up with us. And I'm going to now, since we have it committed, I will be sending a note off to the students to let them know, and we'll look forward to one of their applications, I'll tell you that. So, with that, we now move to discussion items. So the first one is Project Downtown, Phase 2, Welch-Comer Design Discussion and Feedback. We start with Sean Colts.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We have the design team of Welch-Comer with us tonight, just to give an update to Council on Project Downtown Pullman. And there are a few areas of feedback we'd like to hopefully get some input from the Council on. The design team is moving very quickly, so we'll get as many touches in with the Council as we can between now and when we want to bid this project in the spring. So it's moving fast. The design team showed up a little bit late because they're also working on Moscow's downtown project. So they came a little bit late tonight. But anyway, I'll pass the baton to Matt Gillis, who will kick it off.
Thanks, Sean. Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. As Sean mentioned, my name is Matt Gillis. My colleagues, whom you know, Del Hatch and Courtney Kramer. You might be wondering why you're seeing Matt Gillis and not Phil Boyd. While Phil served you through the concepting phase effectively, I'll be serving you through the design phase. And it's strategic because it suits our skill sets. And so I can assure the council and the mayor that you are receiving the appropriate staff for the appropriate tasks. So I just use the arrows here, right? Okay. So we're here to give you a quick update as to what we've been up to. After you turned us loose in September, we are racing into design. I'll talk about the schedule in just a moment. But first, I wanted to quickly review the scope of work. We'll talk about the schedule. Courtney will review the engagement plan, which is a little bit different in the design phase than it would be in the concept phase. The heavy lifting from a outreach standpoint, it was done in the concepting phase. Now the input's just a little bit different in design. Then we'll just inform you on specific design elements that we've been up to, and then finally ask for specific direction on some items that would be really helpful to help keep us on schedule. So as you know this, but in any big infrastructure project like this one, it's not just one phase. There's all these phases in the life of a project. And fortunately for us, we got to start with a published master plan that was done probably maybe 3 years ago now. That helped us jump into the concept phase, which we just got done with. Now we're in this phase 2 final design. And again, I'll get into schedule. Like Sean mentioned, we hope to bid this project in the spring so we can get decent bids, hopefully, and build the project. Then we've got the ribbon cutting, and then it's that number 5 where your design and construction team kind of step away and it becomes your new asset to take care of and to nourish. And so we can talk about that in later meetings, but it'll be very important. I wanted to show you this map, which I think you're familiar with. You've seen this a few times now. This is just intended to give a snapshot of the scope. So not everything shown in the red clouds is in the scope of work. The primary project, the big project, is Main Street, and we'll talk about the details of that in a moment. But that's by far the big project. Then there's Grand. A little bit different, a lighter scope of work, which we'll get into that. And then Davis Way, the trail extension. So let me back up. Main and Grand, those are our base bid projects. We have to get those done. If funding allows, if construction prices allow, we'd like to do Davis, that's the trail extension. Olson, which is primarily pavement marking, and then there's some curb bulb infrastructure that needs to be done, and traffic signals. And then finally, something at Pine Street Plaza, which Dell will discuss, for a total estimate now of $9.4 million. That all changes when we open bids and see how much it actually costs. So from a schedule standpoint, Sean was right. This is a compact schedule. You turned us loose in mid-September. We immediately got to work executing the concept you approved. We did some geotech and some survey work. The first touch to the council is tonight, and we plan on 2 more, so about 60% and about 90% of the way through the design. In between those 2 meetings, we'll be meeting with our steering committee, and I believe it's the same committee that led the concept phase, same group of people. So the hope is to open bids and start construction right about when school lets out. And it'll likely be a 2-year construction, but that's a little bit cloudy until we get further into design. Any questions at this point? You're obviously free to stop me whenever you'd like. Okay. So Courtney's going to discuss the new community engagement plan, and then we'll bounce back and forth a little bit here.
Hello, Mayor, City Council. It's lovely to be with all of you again here in Pullman. I do feel the need to point out my Cougar Crimson shoes. Those were quite the dig out of the closet this afternoon. Pleased to be here with you this evening to talk about our community engagement plan. As Matt discussed, at this point, we're looking to take the decisions and the recommendations made in the concept phase and move forward and further kind of winnow that decision tree down. The primary objectives are to raise community awareness. There are still property owners on Main Street and on Grand Avenue who don't know this project is coming. Despite me going door to door, I know that your staff has had many conversations, but we really want to make sure that no one is surprised by this project. We also want to work with those property and business owners in the community to anticipate and mitigate construction challenges. We also want to collaborate with stakeholders, the steering committee, and the council to inform those final design decisions. We'll use a variety of tools to raise that awareness across kind of these broad constituencies. The Project Downtown Pullman website will be updated. We'll use press releases. We are looking into doing a recorded informational Zoom meeting for property and business owners so that if they can't participate in that moment, they can click on the link and be informed that way. We will hold some small group stakeholder meetings, primarily related to a specific design topic. Maybe it's talking about what happens to exactly to Pine Street Plaza as we get into that a little bit more. We'll also continue to partner with the City of Pullman, the Downtown Pullman Association, and the Chamber of Commerce to use digital media through email and social media. We've identified 3 primary constituencies: property and business owners, again, avoiding surprises. We also want to spur them to think about this as an opportunity to reinvest in their business or their building. A lot of people have told me, I was going to do a facade project, but I don't want to be closed for 4 weeks. Well, if the street's going to be under major construction, maybe this is an opportunity to do an interior or an exterior remodel. And then again, anticipating potential construction challenges. In terms of economic development organizations, they have tools and access to tools to help their constituents during construction, and we want to make sure that they pursue those opportunities and are in a position to deploy them. We also really want to make sure that in the fall of 2024, when there's this fantastic streetscape on Grand Avenue and Main Street, that everybody's ready to actually use those people spaces. And what does that look like? So often, the planning for a sidewalk sale really goes months in advance, and we want to make sure people are ready. And then the community, again, generating excitement about the project and how to support those businesses during construction. We saw some great examples in Spokane. Actually, you may remember they had major downtown infrastructure work happening, and their Realtors Association challenged, I think it was their Appraisers Association. They said, as realtors, we're going to have every single business lunch, coffee, or dinner or meeting in a downtown business this week, and next week we challenge you to do it. And then you challenge the engineers, and then the engineers. So how do we help the community help the businesses? As part of anticipating construction, it's a broad-ranging topic. There's a lot of nervousness, and understandably, for those business owners and for the community. How do we get to the library? Are you going to replace the water line and the sewer line? And if you're going to replace the sewer line, please don't do it at 5 o'clock on a Friday night. I own a restaurant, and all of those questions. And so those will be the things that we work through. Additionally, we'll be working with stakeholders, the steering committee, and of course you to guide final design selections. The stakeholders will help us collaborate on design details that are specific to their property or business, and again, prepare for construction. Excuse me. The steering committee will help us guide that stakeholder engagement, let us know, hey, you have a blind spot here, make sure you reach out to them. And then also inform the design process and provide a final recommendation to the City Council. Excuse me. Ultimately, it is your role as the City Council to consider those design recommendations and adopt a final design. Your role to allocate funding and then issue the call for bids to construct the project. So, it's a cumulative process that leads to this final design and preparation for construction. With that, I'm going to turn it back to Matt to talk about some of the specifics of the final design. Yes, Councilor Guido.
Go ahead.
So Courtney, thanks for that update, and I just wanted to pass along as the council member on the steering committee and also serve on the DPA board, Holly Greystone, who is the director of the DPA, said that business members are already asking very specific questions, and to assure them that, we're not ready to answer them at this point, that we are indeed in the design phase. I mean, everything from, like you said, when is it going to happen so that I can schedule my vacation, or I want to strip the floor, can I do that at that time, to, what kind of concrete cut are we going to do? So very specific. They are thinking ahead about this. One suggestion that was made that I thought was interesting was the idea of an electronic map that is updated on a weekly basis on our website that would say, that this part of Main Street is not accessible for this amount of time, or this business is closed, but we're expected to open at such and such a time, in as much real time as possible. I said that I would express that, didn't know if that was possible. It seemed like a good idea.
Fantastic, thank you. With no other questions, I'll turn it back over to Matt. There you are.
Okay, thanks, Courtney. That was a wonderful idea, an interactive map. That's great. But yes, I think your instinct was right. We probably are a little early at this point, but once we get things more solidified, that should be available. So what have we been up to over the last month? I'm going to go through each of the main projects, and I'm not going to get into the weeds too much with the boring design stuff, but some of the higher level stuff that you might find interesting. As I mentioned at the beginning, Main Street is the big project from a intrusiveness standpoint, a traffic control standpoint, and a cost standpoint. And forgive me if some of this is review, but it's a complete reconstruction from everything underground, the water, sewer, the storm, the power, the gas, the asphalt, the sidewalks, the lights, everything, and the trees, which will be discussed in specificity later in this presentation, because that's very important. Some of the changes to Main Street that I wanted to point out is at the intersections. So you remember that we're going to reduce number of lanes from Kamiakin to Spring from 3 lanes to 2 lanes. We'll keep 3 lanes between Grand and Kamiakin. What this does is it gives us the opportunity to introduce what we call curb bulbs. These are the bulbs that come out at the corners, which do a couple of things. One of the biggest benefits is it shortens the crosswalk. And I'll show you a statistic on Olson specifically, but anytime we can reduce the amount of time a pedestrian is in the street, safety goes up, and we all like that. The other thing the curb bulb does is it further delineates where the parking is. So the angle parking or the parallel parking, it gives drivers a clearer idea of where it starts and stops, so that's a benefit. The bulbs also provide a small area, albeit, for landscaping and or stormwater treatment before we discharge into our streams. So those are 2 new things that you don't see too much in the downtown right now, but will be a benefit, I believe. The raised intersection at Pine, that was in the concept and still very much on the table. We believe the traffic signal will be removed, but replaced by either an RRFB. You've seen these before. You push the button and they blink yellow, and they've got the yellow sign associated with them. That's a lower control, but then there's also a hawk signal, which you have one in town. I'm not sure exactly where it's at, but you've been through it before, which is a little more control. Those 2 things are in an effort to give this intersection more of a plaza feel, because we expect pedestrians to be using it more and more. With a raised intersection, we believe that will provide some traffic calming. And when I think of that, and when you think of that, you're probably thinking of speed. So we expect a reduction of speed through this area. Provides an opportunity for decorative surfacing, whether it's colored concrete or clay pavers. We don't yet know that. We don't yet know the colors. And then also a transit stop. We've been working with the transit folks on, this is a primo location for people getting on and off transit. So moving from Main to Grand, I don't know if, maybe you all know this, but on the east side of Grand, you've seen the sidewalk over there where it's either really, really old, or it's old and it's got an asphalt surfacing over the top of it. And I've never seen that before, and we scratched our heads as to why. Well, Dry Creek is running underneath. I see some head nods, so some of you know this. Dry Creek's running underneath the sidewalk there, which is a structure somewhere between 12 and 14, 15 feet wide, 4 or 5 feet tall, large. So part of the scope, our charge is to figure out how to rehabilitate that surfacing. And so we're working with concrete experts and grinders to see what can be done there. So that'll be fun. The other side, fortunately, is standard concrete. That'll be rehabilitated. What won't be done on Grand, and you probably know this, is the surfacing of the roadway. The asphalt will remain. It's just the treatments on the outside. Perhaps the biggest, we'll call it an issue, on Grand is the lane configuration. Our current strategy, and this is pending your direction, is to keep it as is, the vehicle travelway, which is 3 lanes of traffic, northbound, southbound, and left turn lane, and 62 parallel parking stalls along the entire length. At some point in the future, because the DOT owns it, it's a state highway, they've got some level of service or performance requirements that will cause some triggers. And what that means, do I need to describe the level of service? We've probably talked, oh, okay. It's essentially, think about it as your high school grades. Level of service A, unimpeded, free-flowing, life is great. Level of service F, a coup game lets out and it's gridlock. So that gives you kind of the bookends. The DOT will accept a level of service D right now, which sounds bad, but in a downtown environment, that's acceptable. A busy downtown is a good downtown, healthy downtown. We can apply and intend to apply for a degradation of that to an E. We expect them to accept that. Where it gets tricky, though, is at some point in the future, we believe, in fact, in 2028, we believe the performance of Grand will degrade from a level of service E to an F. And in the DOT's world, that means something needs to be done. And that something is changing from 3 lanes to 5 lanes, which at that point, really what it means is we lose 62 parking stalls. And so our assumed strategy has been you want to keep the 3 lanes, keep the parking in place until we're forced to remove that parking. That gives the city time to plan for and to mitigate the future loss of parking. So that's the first item that we'd really like feedback on. Are we on the right track with that strategy? Or the alternative is, frankly, we take out all the parking now with the project and go straight to 5 lanes.
Any comments from council?
How does
Francis,
that?
I saw you were going there first, and then we'll go to others, okay?
I can go there. That I would say we keep the parking as long as possible until the state mandates that they have to be removed, would be my recommendation.
And did you have some comment, or was it Megan? Megan, okay?
How does that impact the cost if we do it now versus later?
Whether we do it now, or the short answer is it's paint, it's pavement markings. But whether we do it now or later, as part of the project, we need to do some minor infrastructure changes in these curb bulbs to make it simple down the road to make this change. We just figure if we've got a contractor mobilized and they're doing $9 million of work, let's get these small little items addressed so that if a change is needed down the road, it can be implemented. But to answer your question, the cost is low.
Okay, Nathan.
What is the 2028 LOS of F? I mean, how are you getting that?
So we put together a pretty robust traffic model. And so we essentially build the city, and then we forecast growth based on any source that we can get. And then we end up measuring delay. So level of service is a measurement of delay. So if the average delay, and I can't remember what it is exactly, goes from 65 seconds to 80 seconds, let's say, that triggers a level of service F.
So based on the growth of the city at what, 1.5 to what are you, is that what you're?
Boy, I don't remember those exact numbers. I can grab them for the next time.
That's
But
all right, yeah.
yeah, we have it documented for sure.
Okay, great.
One thing we've been talking about too, and that is Sean's proposal, we've had looking at some computer assistance for our traffic signals. Would that delay the eventual impact on F with these traffic signals that we can change for certain situations?
I believe it would. If our signals talk to one another and the signals we have are upgraded to more efficient controllers, more current technology, I think, yeah, we can move that needle a little bit. Maybe it goes from 2028 to 2030 or something like that.
Other questions or comments? Okay. Well, Pat?
Just looking at the traffic on Grand at different times of the day, we're approaching critical mass right now. But, I mean, it is definitely tied in with work shifts and
Sure.
that kind of thing. And I'm just wondering, unless there's some way that we can mitigate the loss of 62 stalls downtown, pay me now or pay me later kind of thing. And, you know, I think we can ameliorate the traffic situation that we currently have by widening that street. Just a thought. I can be swayed either way, but that's my initial observation anyway.
Okay.
You can widen for a certain distance. Yeah. And then eventually it all comes back, just like I did on I-90 coming back from Seattle when it went to one lane. It's amazing how fast you can move until one lane hits. Okay.
Any other comments on Grand? Oh, yes,
I guess
ma'am.
I just have one other. With your experience, have you dealt with similar situations where communities have had to decide on this and what they typically do when it comes to that? Do you postpone it? Do you deal with it now?
We had a similar situation in Colville, and frankly, what I found is the more we communicate effectively with the DOT, which we've been doing, they're at the table, they know exactly what we're up to, and they're on board. I think it's things like being able to get the degradation waiver in place from a D to an E. We've kind of plowed some of that ground already with them. And so, first off, I think having a healthy relationship with your partner is probably the biggest factor.
Eileen?
Yeah, I like this, and I think the removing of the parking on Grand is too much at this time. I like your plan a lot, and I have to keep going back to that traffic signal thing. If we get that grant and be able to sort out that traffic signals, the timing of the lights is what I hear from residents all the time and people that travel Grand. If we get some coherent timing of the lights on Grand, it will much improve that entire situation. So that could buy us a good amount of time and a good amount of goodwill, which for those who travel Grand is in short supply right now.
Good point. Okay. Olson. So now Olson, as I mentioned before, is an ad alternate, so we hope to be able to do it. But the couple primary elements here is, well, there's three. One is a change from parallel parking to angle parking. Doing so, we get a net gain of 8 parking stalls, which is a big deal. Adding the curb bulbs, as I mentioned before, we're able to shorten the crosswalk, at least on Olson, from 56 feet to 26 feet, that's a big deal. That'll help safety quite a bit. And then there's a small stormwater repair that's shown in this image here that we hope to address with this project. I see heads nodding. You've probably seen the issues there. Sorry, any comments there? Okay. Davis Way, again, an ad alternate. The picture on the right shows the current or existing shared use path that's further to the west. Our plan, or your plan, the direction to us, is to extend that path, remove the sidewalk, extend that wider path down to Grand. And in doing so, we plan to, because we understand it's seldom used, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, removing the parallel parking on the south side in that particular location. I think there's 15 or 16 stalls there, maybe, but it isn't used too much, maybe like 8. In removing that, we're able to add a dedicated right turn lane, which now we've just improved performance a little bit. So that's Davis. And then Dell is going to lead us through a Pine Street Plaza discussion, and I think probably right into trees.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. As Matt said, the Pine Street Plaza is also one of the areas that we're going to be looking at for some improvements, minor improvements granted just because of the amount of money that we're addressing or assigning to this area. Frankly, we think that the Pine Street Plaza is in pretty good shape. We think the paving pattern is a beautiful patterning. The trees in there seem to be doing fairly well. We think that there may be an opportunity to put in an trenching or access for power for a festival tree. You can see the tree in the image there. But we think that there may be some opportunities. Let me hit the right button here. One of the things that we're thinking about, and during our concepting phase, we heard a lot of comments about, is there an opportunity to get closer to the water, get down to the water? And the image that you see in the upper left there is a picture of a project that Matt and I have worked on in Coeur d'Alene along the Spokane River, where we were doing some fairly significant stream bank reinforcement mitigation for erosion. And there was also the desire to allow people to get down closer to the water, not necessarily as a swimming opportunity, but just to get down there next to the water. And you can see that the seat step feature that we included there was something that we felt may be an opportunity at the edge or flanking the bridge off of the Pine Street Plaza. So that's something we're going to explore. You can see in that image that there are some greenery elements that bisect or parallel those steps. One thought was, too, that there may be an opportunity to create an outfall of stormwater from parts of the city in some sort of a terraced treatment or biotreatment as it would move to the creek. So that's one of the ideas. There's been an expression of interest in some play structures of sorts. Not that these are a final selection, but something that could, excuse me, address activities of younger kids to even teens and such. So the trampoline, the upgrade trampoline that you see there that has a soft fall material is something that we've seen in certain playgrounds we've done that's fairly popular. And the table is actually a ping pong table. So add some color, potential interest, not that we've settled on any particular apparatus, but we think there may be an opportunity for something like that. And then the wayfinding kiosk for informational orientation, things like that, we think would be important. It already functions fairly well, I think, as a gathering area. There's seating opportunities in there now. There's been talk about maybe looking at different seating, table, chair arrangements and things like that that might actually be movable to keep the space flexible. No real detail on the final design of that yet. Any questions on that?
Eileen.
A comment. I really like the idea of the steps. And I've been watching this area a lot over the years. And just due to the way the weather is and our occasional flooding or near flooding, that area right there by the bridge, the way the water eddies through there, it collects a lot of garbage.
Yeah.
Anything that's flowing down the creek manages to collect, unfortunately, right there. And that would allow for maybe some of that material to leave our site, or if nothing else, it would allow easy access for cleanup and maintenance.
Yep.
And that would be a huge benefit for cleanup and maintenance for that. And keep it accessible year-round and build into some of that flood control elements that we just now have a hunk of plywood up there. So all this, yeah, I love that. It has so many advantages.
Yeah. And something instituted like this would obviously still have to incorporate the flood control panels, but those could be integrated into the top portion of it. So seasonally, obviously the steps wouldn't be accessible, but at low water they would.
Nathan, then Francis.
Yeah, I just have to concur with Eileen that activating, the streams, the waterways is extremely important. I like that. And as somebody who has cleaned up the river in that area, yeah, Eileen's completely correct. So I really like it. And the wayfinding, that is excellent, absolutely. So thank you for the suggestions.
Francis?
Yeah, I really like the concrete steps, the activation of the water that way. Back on your previous slide, when you're talking about potential trenching and power, where you were talking about the tree, there is a lot of music that's done in that area, and so the power it'd be helpful to also trench for power for where the musicians would normally perform.
Yep.
That would, if for a power requirement, that'd be very helpful.
Like a power pedestal or two, so that you could set up
Yeah.
there, yeah. Okay,
Okay.
good. Okay, we're going to move on to the trees, one of the more important issues that we've talked about all through the concepting phase. And as we move into the detailed phase of design, we're starting to now look at grade issues and things like that. So the public comments on trees were that we got that message very strongly that these are important to the character of our downtown. They create a lot of the ambiance in our downtown, and we heard that very clearly, and we've been working towards looking at options on how we accomplish all of that in conjunction with one of the other major goals of making your downtown pedestrian-centric, creating larger opportunities on the sidewalks for activities and things like that. The tree impacts, we're going to talk a little bit about the positioning of the trees as they exist today in conjunction with widening our sidewalks, and especially on the north side where we're introducing the bike lane and what offsets and shy distances we need for the bike lane so that there are no obstacles and things like that, where the trees fall and what space is left available for activities and things of that nature. On the south side, it's a little not quite as demanding because there is no bike lane proposed on that side. So we're going to talk a little bit as well about what saving trees in a project like this does to potentially does to construction costs during not only demolition but also during construction, what that means to a contractor who has the responsibilities to retain those trees and protect those trees, and how he ensures them through his work, and how we move through, and hopefully he doesn't destroy them with pieces of equipment banging into them, things like that. Currently, in reviewing some of the ordinances within the city code, the pruning heights at 16.5 feet at street side, most of your trees have accomplished that. It looks to me like your trees have been pruned quite high. Some of them on the north side simply to not conflict with the awnings off of buildings and things like that. And then an offset of 7 feet for truck clearances so that large-bodied trucks and stuff are not hitting the branches constantly, damaging trees and things like that. That's what's set up for the city. Within your downtown district, Matt and I have talked about, are there opportunities to work somewhat differently than just how strict are those look to be enforced within a downtown district? In a neighborhood district, I think those are still quite appropriate. So I'm a landscape architect consulting with Matt. In our office, we have multiple landscape architects. One of our young landscape architects, James Davis, is also an arborist. And James was down here a couple of weeks ago and spent 2 days doing a complete review and inventory of all the 76 trees that are within our project area, in the area that Matt described to you along Main and on all the way over to Olson and on Grand and Pine Street. So he's looked at all of those from purely an arborist standpoint. And what we asked James to do was go in, assess every tree for how healthy you feel that tree is. Has it been pruned properly in the past? Does it look as though it's appropriately sized for its age? In your opinion, based on the conditions it's growing in, what do you think the expectancy of that tree might be in the next 10, 20, 30 years, things like that. So I have a few illustrations here that we're going to go through for you. I don't actually have the assessment for you to review, although we can provide it to you. It's about 2 pages of that long, and it's quite detailed because it's looking at all different issues of the growth and health of the tree. So we talked about cost of preservation. We're going to talk about cost of replacement, new grade conditions within the existing tree elevations. When I speak of the tree elevations at the existing grade that the tree is at now on the sidewalk, there's very little adjustments to sidewalks at thresholds, out to curbs, to the street. There's very little adjustment that you have that you can work around those trees. So that's where the difficulty comes in. If we have to raise the sidewalks adjacent to an existing tree, that tree may be setting in a slight well. If the sidewalks have to come down adjacent that tree, then we have that tree in a slight, we'll call it a raised planter. It might be this high to this high. They might vary all the way through as we get into the detailed design. Currently, all of these trees are pretty much set within a 4-foot opening. There is not a lot of air or water that gets directly to that tree and its root. Most of it's impervious surface. So those are the conditions when we look at the trees in blue under further review. Let's just take a look at, so north to the top, one of the things that James did when he evaluated these trees was he addressed which trees he felt were the least appropriate in their spots and their health condition, pruning, or et cetera, are probably candidates to be removed. You can see the one down there near Spring and Paradise. The other 3 are up near Grand. I think the one on the island on Grand is the birch tree. You can see the other one a little further up on the corner. So not many of those trees did he feel were actually, of the 76, were trees that were totally inappropriate or in a state of health that he thought those trees should be removed. That's pretty good news, really, that your trees are in that good of shape. You can see that that second dot there has a yellow to it. And I know that that's very hard to read, but what the yellow is indicating, you can see that the majority of those trees have a yellow tint to them. We asked him to look at which of the trees are showing damaged sidewalks or curbs adjacent to trees. So the vast majority of your trees in the downtown are lifting, breaking sidewalks, or have broken or tilted curbs and things like that. That's simply from the growth of the tree and its roots expanding through that area. The blue trees that he has listed are potential trees that are a little bit borderline, and those are trees that potentially could come out. And the ones that are simply a circle green with no yellow are trees, which there aren't many, but there are a few that he feels have not damaged sidewalks or curbs. Now, all of that information is in addition to the fact that he thinks most of your trees are fairly healthy at this point. So, again, there's a little bit of analysis there. 4 trees identified for immediate removal, 18 trees identified as possible candidates for removal and replacement out of 76. Any questions on that?
I have one. If
Yes,
you,
sir.
if you leave a tree in there that has, at this point, shown no, I can't think of too many trees that have not damaged sidewalks, how much longer by leaving it in before it starts damaging a sidewalk and we go through all this money to try and replace all these sidewalks and fix things up, and then we just face the same issue again in 2 or 3 years?
Well, it's a difficult question for me to answer that it's either 1 year to 3 years or 5 years. But if it's damaging your sidewalks today, and the grades from thresholds to curbs are changing slightly but not significantly, then we're simply putting new concrete or pavement options over the top of those routes again. In my opinion, there is a good chance that you'll see cracking of some of your new sidewalks, which would be it'd be a shame. I mean, you keep your trees, but you've put a lot of money, effort into creating a new, freshly designed, pedestrian-centric downtown. And you could very well see some of those sidewalks crack, some of the curbs being busted out of alignment and things like that, as they are today.
One of the presentations you mentioned about getting new irrigation systems in for all the trees.
Mm-hmm.
And would that also delay? I mean, obviously now it gets water and the roots don't have to find some kind of, refuge to find water. Would that delay the process with a new irrigation system?
Adding irrigation to the trees will help the trees. In the long run, it will give them more water. We're also proposing, along with irrigation, of opening up that space around the trees, so there's more air and opportunities for moisture to get to the roots. As the trees are in the condition they're in now, without an active irrigation system that we can see, they're searching for water, and wherever they can go, then you all understand the pressure that they can create. They're looking, and that's why you're seeing a lot of that stuff lifting. If we're adding water to those trees, we'll probably add to the growth of the tree. So could it postpone it? Potentially, but the tree may grow faster as well because now it's getting more water and more air, and the roots could also expand.
It may be cost prohibitive, but have we talked about suspended pavement for the sidewalks?
We have talked in our concepting of how we might adjust around some of these existing trees. Not only would we potentially open up the space around the tree, but in areas where we can achieve it, we would suspend panels of sidewalk, not compacting the soil directly above the roots. And we have instituted that on a number of projects that we've done. We've instituted it with installation of new trees. We have the opportunity at that point to have about that much airspace from the bottom of that suspended panel down to the soil that supports the tree. So we're already ahead of the game quite a bit in that consideration. In our situations where we can't really raise the sidewalk enough to get a gap above your existing root system, it gets a little more challenging, although we are exploring how we can do that.
Ann?
Thank you. So my question is sort of related to Eileen's. If instead of just widening the space that the trees have to get air and water, so hopefully the root systems will go down instead of searching upward, could we do some sort of, instead of like trees and wells, can we just do a strip that's all open between the trees to just allow so instead of individual wells, it would be like a path, but, with the trees, something more open, is that a viable option?
More of a planter strip?
Yeah.
We could do that. The challenge with that is that we have curbside parking. We're moving people from the edge of the curb to storefronts. Your trees at this point are ending up pretty much in the middle of your sidewalk. That's where they're located. They're located around 9 feet or so off of the buildings today, but when we expand your sidewalks, now they're essentially positioned in the middle of the sidewalk.
Right.
So putting a strip down through there almost becomes an obstacle for people moving from, say, their parked car to a storefront or something like that.
But could there be an open, aerated, durable surface that could be walked upon? So not just grass but could there be something?
Yes, I have never done it personally, but I have seen where they have set up a system similar to what you're describing, and there is like a graded system through there. With ADA laws today, in sidewalk situations, those openings are quite small.
Yeah.
They support traffic. It would do what you're suggesting. A lot of times, though, if those grates are large enough to get air and moisture in there, they're also large enough to get a little bit of trash sometimes.
Right.
So that would be one downfall to it, but you could do it with a graded system. Having worked with some grading systems, it is as expensive or more expensive than the concrete sidewalks that they're abutting.
Okay, thank you.
And in snow and ice country?
I've never seen it in snow and ice country.
That's what I thought. Okay, yeah. Becky?
Just curious, as a landscape architect, for downtowns, I mean, what is the, I don't even know how to ask this question. What is the concept of trees? Like, do you expect them to grow for a number of years and then are replaced? Is that pretty much how cities are managing it?
Ultimately, your downtown trees and technology in terms of the way they're planted in today's world versus when these were planted, and I don't honestly know exactly what condition these trees were planted in, if they were in a circular well or any kind of a setup, but in today's world, they are usually planted with a little bit more granular material that lets the roots move more freely. It's not highly compacted. It might have some suspended sidewalks over them so that it's starting with an opportunity to grow for quite some time. In a downtown situation, is 50 to 60 years unreasonable for a tree? Probably not. But at some point, as trees keep growing, we all know they get larger and larger. We've all probably seen situations where tree grates that didn't get removed, now the trunk is incorporated into the tree grate. I'm assuming these may have had grates at one time, but they got large enough that the grates have been simply removed. So to answer your question, yes, is there an anticipated lifespan? Yeah. In my experience, to plan for more than 50 to 60, 70 years would be something where you'd probably look at starting to replace trees.
And is that relatively new? Like, I think these trees are something like, what, 20 years old, something like that.
Yeah.
It's 20 years ago. Would you have said the same thing, 50 to 60 years, or?
Yes, 20 years ago, I might have even shortened it a little bit because, and again, this is just speaking from my own personal experience, the technique of how we planted trees back then was to plant them in some cases, in a culvert section that was a 4-foot culvert in diameter that was about 3.5 to 4 feet deep. When you plant a tree in any kind of a contained, restricted environment, it will reduce the chance that that tree can reach its normal maturity and habit. And you're restricting its opportunity for how long it can live in that condition. So,
Continue on.
okay. So what we have done is we have looked at a number of what options there might be as we look at these, and I think we have 3 of them here. Under a plan like this, the top symbol, which is a red circle, would recommend that those trees come out, 12 out of the 64. And then we've looked at what we feel might be the pros and cons of an option like this. So this response is to the storybook comments through our concepting and stuff and maintains the existing trees and shade canopy. It retains the value of mature trees. And I don't believe there's any argument that the trees in your downtown now add to the feel and character of your downtown. The one comment that I will make, and I've heard one comment expressed to me, that one of the great things why we want to keep these trees is because of the shade that they provide. You have a unique situation in that your street is sort of an east-west orientation. So the north side of your street should be the hot side of your street. And I'm imagining that's why most of those businesses have awnings and coverings, is to produce some shade on that side. There aren't nearly as many on the south. But your trees now, pruned up at 16 feet or higher, very little of that shade ever gets to your sidewalks from the trees. Now, there is probably some shade that is being cast onto the adjacent buildings. So there is probably some heat reduction for the building itself, but for shading the sidewalks, I personally I haven't observed that. The cons involved with something like this is it's going to be in a less than, the trees, as they remain, would be in a less than ideal configuration. Again, I go back to, they are positioned now as we widen your sidewalks or move the curbs out. They're now positioned more in the center of your sidewalks versus traditionally they would be more closer to the curbside, which would allow for that more activity space that we've talked about through the concepting of how can we activate your sidewalks and provide that space. So, future sidewalk heaving, we've listed as a con because it's an observation that we feel is one that warrants considering. One of the things that we've also done, and Matt may be able to share some more with it, but he's talked to me about discussions with some contractors who work in these kind of conditions, and we've asked some opinions as to what would this do schedule-wise as you demolish everything in preparation for work. Well, again, each one of these trees is going to have a cost associated with it for the contractor. He has to protect it and maintain it. So he's insuring that. So he's adding that insurance to your construction contract. He's doing the best job he can not to damage the tree or its roots as he demolishes everything right adjacent and above it, prepping it, essentially trenching in different areas for utilities, things like that. And as he goes back in and starts replacing with new, he's also having to be very aware of where these trees are, big heavy equipment, and what he's doing. I think it would be rare if he didn't damage a few of those trees simply by accident. In my experience on construction sites where we're maintaining trees, even when they're fenced off, sometimes they get damaged. So there's a few, but again, if he's responsible for each tree and it's damaged and we can identify it and we say, you're going to have to replace that tree. So there's a few things that would be listed as cons here, but it would maintain the vast majority, 64 out of the 76 of those trees. Now, the 12 that we're saying would be removed, it's not to say that we couldn't replace trees where those had come out. So those could be new planted trees. Questions on that option?
Nathan?
So I do like that option. I think the community's been very vocal about how important it is. I think we all know how important it is, even having to kind of be more careful, adding some cost, but it's a part of the culture downtown and the lifestyle here. So yeah.
Becky?
People have been really vocal, and one of the things they've said is that our idea for doing downtown is to make it people-centric, and that trees contribute to that. I think there's something noble about a tree, and I think it's distressing to see a tree cut down. I personally am far more distressed, sorry, trying not to get emotional, that people in wheelchairs right now cannot go downtown. And the idea that we might implement a plan which in very short number of years would further create an elitist, ableist downtown is distressing to me. I appreciate your comments about the shade, because I think that was the other main point. But in creating a people-centric downtown, I very much appreciate your knowledge and your expertise in creating a situation that could create a truly people-centric downtown. You say option number 1 here. I'm interested in what other options you have.
Other questions? Each of the options gets a little more aggressive as we move through. So you can see the number of red circles. On this one, it removes 38 of the 76 trees, or half of the trees, keeping the remaining trees. This maintains some of the existing canopy that you have within the downtown, retains some of that value of mature trees in the downtown. We're doing very selective removal of the trees so that we can maintain that whole character. Again, some of the cons are not that different. The production slowdown during demolition is less than option one. We're not actually working around as many trees. Production slowdown during construction, but it's also less than number one because there are less trees to worry about working around. So the potential damage is not as high. The trees that remain, concrete issues, curb issues would still be probably the main concern of that.
And option 3, since you said you're going to get more aggressive.
Yes, option 3 removes the majority of the trees. 64 out of the 76, it maintains 12. Those 12 are the ones that do not have a red circle associated with them. And they are primarily on the outskirts. At your entry from the east side near Spring Street, those trees at the Pine Street Plaza Square, down on the left at the other public space, those trees would remain. The other trees then get replaced, and they were replaced with as large of a caliper tree as possible, at a 3-inch minimum, preferably 4. I will tell you, those are hard trees to find. If a decision was made to pursue this option, then we would immediately want to recognize that simply so that we could look and secure that many large trees for a project like this. Are there pros? Well, there's no production slowdown during the demolition under an option like this because most of those trees are out of that construction zone. Allows for the ideal placement of trees in conjunction with creating the people-centric downtown and the activity spaces on the now wider sidewalks, and allows for potentially more appropriate selection of what trees should be used in the downtown. Do we select trees under an option like this where we know the trees aren't going to grow to a 50 or 60-foot height? Are they a smaller tree with a less aggressive root system? Those would be things to consider. Are they disease resistant? Things like that. Do we guarantee they're all sterile? There's no berries or fruit on your sidewalk. The cons, it does not respond to, we have to save at all costs the canopy of our trees. That was discussed through the concepting phase. You obviously lose that big tall canopy that you have today. It opens up your downtown somewhat to be able to see some of the more attractive architecture that happens in your downtown because a number of your buildings are now hidden by your trees. But that's a little bit of pros and cons. 3 options going from least painful to most extreme.
Becky, we'll go to you first.
I appreciate this. The con of not responding to the storybook comments to me is huge. And I think we would really need to do some serious messaging around that. The people who spoke up for the trees are good and decent people who I think passionately believe they are speaking for a noble cause. And I think if they understood the cost to the people, to the downtown, that they would perhaps soften on their stance some. But that would create a huge need of communication from our end to the community to help them understand.
Okay, Francis next, then we'll go to Eileen.
Thank you. When we're looking at these different options, you talk about there's a cost associated that the contractor is going to add to it. What's that value?
I'll share. Yeah.
We had that very same question, sir, and so we we asked a couple contractors to come in just so we could bounce some things off, and we showed them the project. And of the 72 or 76 trees, I asked him, so here's the cost to go find 3-inch or 4-inch caliper trees. This is what it would cost to place them. And I'm just talking on extremes. And I realize tree decisions are more about money, and so let me qualify that. But the other end of the spectrum is, if we kept them all, how much does that slow your production? How much does it cost you to insure the trees? And he said, he thought about it for a minute, and he said, $300,000. Just and that was to save the trees. And if you offset to purchase the trees, and I think we estimated those at about $180,000. So it's not the same, but the magnitude of numbers is not wildly different. Does that answer your question?
So the overall, so the $300,000 would be for all trees, not each individial tree?
Oh, definitely, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So for that. And then a follow-up as it relates to the larger tree that you're looking, the more mature to put in, how long would it take for us to achieve canopy?
Well, depending on variety, a 3-inch tree could be in the neighborhood of 16 feet high, top of tree. Canopy on your downtown sidewalks and such, it's rare that you can get trees that already have a 7-foot canopy to an 8-foot canopy. We don't like to, as soon as we put them in, cut them up to that. We usually do it, we step it out over time. But eventually you would want to have at least an 8-foot canopy for flow and movement along your sidewalks. So a 3-inch tree could be in that 15 to 18-foot height as it goes in. Again, depending on variety of tree. Some might be smaller at different locations, maybe in some of the bulb opportunities where we can plant new trees, maybe we put in a different variety. Ultimately, it's a smaller tree all the way around, but it has a different character so that you have some bloom in the spring and you might have some vibrant fall color at certain locations so that it's not more of this monoculture look to a downtown. James Davis, my colleague who did the assessment, I asked him the same question. James, is there a benefit to us putting in a 3-inch tree versus a 4-inch tree? And he said, in his opinion, the 3-inch tree would not have the greatest impact. The 4-inch tree is going to be a taller, bigger tree right out of the chute. But you'll get more growth over the first few years out of the 3-inch tree than you will out of the 4-inch tree. So a 3-inch tree will gain over a 4-inch tree. Seems kind of counterintuitive, but that's been his experience.
Okay. And back on my first question with cost, what's also the time cost for what additional time period is going to add to the construction if we were to leave trees versus not leave trees?
Matt, did he address that?
Somewhat. It was tough to pin the contractor down, as you can imagine. But it was weeks. It wasn't months. It was less delay than I expected. Dell, I think it might be helpful for the council to see the renderings, just so they can see the difference.
It'd be nice if you had renderings of what it would look like with one versus another.
Yeah, there's a couple renderings here that show a cross-section on Main Street, north to the right, and you can see the green illustrating the bike lane. That's where we're gaining the majority of width on that north side because we're incorporating that bike lane. The two gray areas that parallel it are some shy distances so that there are no obstacles that a handlebar might clip as they go by, or people parking parallel can open their door and not impede a biker. The trees that you see are the existing tree locations. They are sort of in the middle of the sidewalk on the north side, actually closer to the building where you can see the lady in red walking. The gray strip below the trees is just to indicate there's that planting area, but it kind of coincides to your comment about, can we create some sort of a strip for those roots? Now, on the south side, you don't have the congestion of the bike lane. We have wider sidewalks, but the trees themselves are almost in the middle of the sidewalk in that location. So these show the taller existing higher canopies. Now we go to more 3-inch trees. The trees are moved out near the curb lines. There's obviously more space on the sidewalks, especially on the south side. And the bike lane can be closer to the edge of the trees because we only need a 2-foot shy distance off of the edge of the bike lane. But you can see dramatically, even in this sketch, which is simply an approximation, yeah, those trees aren't as big.
Allows
But-
the restaurants to have outside cafes and things like that they wanted too. Allows the restaurants to go outside for their
Yeah.
tables too.
Yeah, it allows,
You've
now
got
we're only
space
showing
now.
benches, but in the past, we've shown you examples of maybe tables and chairs and umbrellas and things like that. Other furniture, obviously, would be looked at for trash receptacles and bike racks and lighting. And these actually show light poles in that same alignment of the trees. So these were two sort of fairly quick renderings to show what that might mean.
Eileen, you were next.
Boy, we are in the horns of a dilemma, for sure. One of the things that we've talked about a lot is ADA accessible parking. So that's gonna necessitate probably the removal of a tree or two.
Correct.
So there's that. And I'm there with Becky. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people with a baby stroller, and one adult picks the baby up out of the stroller, and then the other adult has to carry the stroller.
Because of the
it is so,
bumps?
yes, because you'll damage your stroller and your baby if you try to go otherwise. A question I had for Courtney, and I know you were busy this afternoon. When on the steering committee, when we did sort of the umbrella priority listing, and we were wrestling with many of the same things that we're talking about exactly here right now, Brian David Scott finally says, okay, people, which is it? Do you want the people-centric? Do we want to build this thing and people will come? Sorry about that. Or are some of these other things? And people said benches and trees and all those things. So what the steering committee, I mean, is this my recollection? Is this correctly? That the steering committee eventually belled the cat and said, people-centric, and we'll work with the other things as best we can. And it wasn't really an either-or, and I don't think you're proposing an either-or.
I believe that you are correct. That's my recollection. I did look through my notes as well today, and that is accurate. I think that the steering committee members, as downtown business and property owners, really were focused on creating space that they could activate in support of their business in downtown. I do think that the feedback we received through the storybook comments was compelling. And the steering committee has not had an opportunity to extensively review that feedback as well. I'd look to Matt to really understand if, is this a decision we can wait until we hear back from the steering committee when they meet on the 9th of November? Or is our design process moving so quick, do we need to know tomorrow because we're moving so quickly? But Councilor McCall, I would agree with your recollection of their conversation in April, I think.
Yeah.
Nathan.
So I guess I'm a little confused on this. I guess I'll wait until.
I'm sorry.
So I guess I'm a little confused on this. As someone who has crutched their way through downtown in the early 2000s, who has a parent, my mom, who uses a walker. The issues have never been about the trees, from what I understand. It's been the ADA access. So I understand what Councilmember Dubin is saying, Councilmember McCall is saying. I'm a little confused. If we remove 12 trees versus 74 trees, are we getting that much more ADA access? Those are pretty wide sidewalks as they are. I mean, not huge sidewalks, but the inability for people to get around downtown doesn't really have anything to do with the trees other than the tilted sidewalks, which would end up being done by this master plan anyway. Whether we keep the 64 trees, you know, they're still going to get done, correct? The sidewalks, they're not going to leave them tilted.
No, the sidewalks would be redone.
So it's, I'm a little confused about the logic of, you know, then removing them, because in my opinion, if you look at this image versus the previous one, can you put up the previous image if that's possible? You lose quite a bit of character, you know, going to the very immature trees. So can you explain, is there a certain ADA advantage to removing, you know, the mature, going from, let's say, going with the 1 versus the option 3? Other than having to redo the sidewalks in another, you know, like decade or so.
Sounded like 2 to 3, 4 years possibly, not a decade.
I can see where there are a number of ADA issues that new sidewalks would address. First of all, access into businesses, where there are not step thresholds and things like that, which would be a goal of this project. That usually raises sidewalks somewhat in those conditions, because if you're stepping over the threshold, you want it to be a flush entrance. So there's an ADA issue involved there that usually raises sidewalks somewhat. There's a cross-slope requirement of any ADA accessible route, which you want your sidewalks in the downtown to be all ADA accessible, and that is that they can have no more than a 2% cross-slope on them. And when you have, in the conditions you have now, where the majority of those trees have lifted sidewalks, and the only options at this point have been to go in and grind them off or grind off an element, even though it's ground off and there isn't as much of a tripping hazard, it's still lifted over here and lifted over here to a point that it probably exceeds that 2% cross slope. So there's 2 ADA issues involved in that regard. New sidewalks, we save the trees, we come in with new sidewalks, you're going to end up with probably accessible accesses into your businesses and no more than a 2% cross slope from the threshold of a building out to a curb. The fact remains, if these trees you have today are lifting and breaking sidewalks and curbs over the time they've been in now, there is a strong possibility that they will break and lift some of your new sidewalks as well. I can't tell you if that'll happen in one year or 10 years, but in my opinion, I think that you will see some of those new sidewalks being lifted or broken.
So removing all of them will create a better ADA.
Well, if we remove the trees and we replace them, obviously with smaller trees, but we place them further out towards the curbs, we then provide the space from the curb line to the building for the people's spaces. We plant them in conditions that are superior to the way these trees have been planted 20 years ago. And I'm not sure exactly when they were planted. Do you folks?
I think they were longer than those.
Yeah, I would imagine they're probably a little longer than 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But the techniques for planting trees in urban situations has come quite a ways. The soil conditions that are used for planting those trees, how they're irrigated, all of those things contribute to the longevity of trees that go into urban spaces today.
you have other things to talk about tonight?
I don't believe so.
Or we're going to be biting the bark here very shortly.
I'll touch on wayfinding just briefly for you.
Okay.
Julia Culp, another one of my colleagues.
Mayor, I'm sorry, before we switch, can I ask a quick operational question that came out of the tree discussion?
Certainly.
Sorry. Hey, Del, you identified very early on in the discussion 4 problem trees that should be removed immediately. From a risk management standpoint, should I be calling staff tomorrow to address these issues, or can this happen organically throughout the process that's already been established?
I would imagine that they could be removed during the construction of the project. I don't think there's an imminent danger, but based on the health of those 4 trees that he looked at, he just felt that's not a tree that's going to have a long life in its current location.
Okay. Thank you, Del. Thank you, Council, for indulging me.
In terms of wayfinding, my colleague Julia Culp, landscape architect, has been in discussions with Courtney and with the effort that's ongoing for branding for the city right now, and in discussions with wayfinding and how this can also be incorporated into this downtown project. So we have not gotten to a detailed point of showing exact locations for which signs for the wayfinding plan, where those would occur, but just to assure you that that is also part of this project. There are some of the locations that have been targeted for certain orientation and wayfinding. Kiosk locations at Pine Street and a couple other critical locations. And then the last thing I'll touch on real briefly is that today, within your sidewalks, you have some plaques that honor former residents or current residents of the city. Those obviously are a challenge to, as you're demolishing the downtown, to preserve and protect. Matt and I had a similar challenge on a project in Colville. So one of the things we're looking at is how do we preserve that recognition in honoring these people? And one of the things that we're considering now is working those names into a new element or enhancement within the project. These are just examples that we thought we would show you of how other communities have handled similar situations. One of the ideas we have that we're kind of leaning towards is at that raised intersection at Pine Street, where it's a broader people space, potentially even setting 4 monuments, 2 on each side of Main Street, where those monuments might be shaped to have plaques that are added to them, or have the opportunity, and may have the opportunity to add names over time. So the idea would be to collect all of the plaques that have been in the sidewalk. Some are already, I know, slightly damaged, but to collect them, record those names, and then reincorporate them into some new elements within the downtown.
And then we've taken care of a slip hazard that was there for a while. We've changed the design, and they took care of a slipping hazard that we had for a while. But I know we have a Walk of Fame committee that meets at least once a year, and we could get some input from them too as to what they would like.
That would
I
be
think they've talked
fantastic.
about it in times. So, yeah. Eileen.
I would really like to touch base back again with the steering committee. Is our time frame going to accommodate that? Courtney said November 9. Okay, Matt, does that work with your?
As I did mention, we are on a tight schedule. That being said, the trees are a complex issue, and if we need to slow down a bit, we can focus on other areas of the design, but in all honesty, we will need an answer here soon.
Are you looking for a straw poll tonight, perhaps?
I don't think so. I think we sense as a design team there's some contemplation that needs to happen.
They've been contemplating for some time. I
Okay.
just want to make sure that's very clear to everybody. So, yes, Ann?
Is it possible for you to send us, even if this PowerPoint, or just even the parts about the trees, so we can
Yeah,
look
the
at
city
them?
does have this
The city has it.
PowerPoint, but
Okay.
Okay,
We
thank you.
can
I didn't see it.
Post it on the website. Okay.
Were you done here? I think I'm done. Final slide, I promise. Just a quick discussion about parking. I wanted to give you a quick snapshot on any changes to parking to what the current conditions are. Again, some of this is repeat. The NC right there on Main between Grand and Kamiakin means there's no change in number. So no change between Kamiakin and Pine. There's a net loss of 5. We're working on that. We're going to try to get that to about 3 on Main between Pine and Paradise. A gain on Main between Paradise and Spring. A gain on Olson, as I said before, and then the roughly 16, or maybe it's less, on Davis. And this is not including the bigger issue on Grand. So I just wanted to present that to you so it wasn't a surprise.
And the one question I had written down here on the curb bulbs that you're putting in, will there be extra above lighting to make sure those pedestrian walkways are well lighted? Because some of them are not as well lighted right now that we should have.
Yes, sir. I think especially in intersections where there's a traffic signal, it will be very bright.
Yeah.
And where there isn't, there will be additional intersection lighting.
Okay.
And we do understand there's a hot spot on Grand and Main on the south crosswalk there.
Yes, that's
There's
the one that's been very serious. We've had
we're working on that.
bad injuries there.
Yes, sir.
Glenn?
Yes,
Can I-
Francis.
Additional comment on the curb bulbs, especially as it relates to AD requirements for those that are sight impaired, for the sound. How ours are currently set up are not aligned. So they're aligned for crossing the street, but the speaker actually projects into the building as opposed to down the sidewalk. And if we can make sure that gets changed because it's affecting our business owners, because the sound inside the building when the speakers should be projected down the sidewalk for the people that are walking. And it has to do with where our posts are located, but with the curb bulbs, that's going to be very important for those that are sight impaired.
It's very good to know. Thank you.
Mayor, just can I ask, so on the curb bulbs, especially at Pine Street, how tall, we'd have planters or something perhaps? Or my concern is this, if I have small children, would there be visibility for children, for drivers who are approaching those bulbs if the children are behind them, or, do you understand what I'm asking?
I think I do. Your sight distance, we want to make sure
Yeah.
people can see cars and cars can see people.
Yeah.
I think Dell and I have done this enough times. We know wherever there's pedestrians crossing, any growies need to be pretty short to maintain the appropriate
Thank you.
sight distance.
I wasn't sure how to visualize that. Thank you.
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Well, we've had a lot of discussion. And was there any interest to do a straw poll tonight? Just thought I'd pass it along. I see heads shaking. You want to delay it a little again. So you were suggesting a steering committee coming back with a recommendation. So that's 3 weeks from now, delaying.
It depends on if it works for these people. I think it's imperative that we touch base with the steering committee.
And,
Yes.
or is there any way to get the steering committee to meet a little bit earlier, given the urgency?
Well, that's something they could work on. Okay.
And it'd also be good to hear from the Downtown Association, if they, just from the business standpoint, because a number of these decisions are from the business side also.
Okay. All right. With that, we now move to the next item in discussion tonight, and that's legislative priorities that we have sent to the council. They've had a chance to look at all these. They had a chance to give input. Mike Urban, do you want to make any comments on this one?
Yeah. So after the last meeting, we did send out a new version of this. Haven't heard any requests for edits, so we wanted to run it one more time by the group before we bring it back on a consent agenda item for adoption before the delegation shows up on the 15th.
Doesn't look like there's any further comments.
I felt it looked well.
Okay.
Okay, we'll
Then we
bring
have
that back.
what we have. Very good. Item number 3 on the discussion tonight is about the town hall meetings in the first week. And Mike, you can lead it off, and we'll go from there.
Sure, and I understand this item might be premature as the town halls just happened earlier this month, but I didn't want to lose any of the thoughts or momentum if council wanted to have a discussion. But we did have the 3 council ward town halls on Tuesday, October 4th, Wednesday, October 5th, and Thursday, October 6th. And I just wanted to, I've heard a lot from individual council members. I just wanted to give council an opportunity to discuss amongst themselves. And I don't know if they were ready for that or not tonight, but I at least wanted to have an agenda item that could be discussed or tabled until later.
See, Eileen's mic is on, Eileen.
Yeah, thanks. There was a lot of energy, and I've had a lot of individual comments from participants on both sides of the desk here. There's been a couple of things that kind of bubbled up in the conversation. One was, and these are just suggestions, one was that we'd have it all on one night, and then maybe have a large group meeting. We can move the tables and chairs around, or, I mean, if it gets big, we could do it in the gym, I suppose. But I'd love that. But have a group meeting and then maybe breakout sessions on that same night. We can break out by ward, we can break out by topic, we can break out, I think there's all sorts of permutations. The advantage, of course, to that is it's less confusing for advertising. People are going to know when to show up and why they're showing up. And, of course, the burden on staff I commend all the staff for being there on all those nights. That was a big bite out of their week. But so those are just some of the ideas that have bubbled up in the last couple weeks.
Any other comments? Okay, Ann?
Thank you. I really enjoyed them. I was at mine, and then I watched the other 2, and at the first one, Ward 1, it was really something. People just started coming up and asking questions, and we didn't mention topics or anything, and they just, it came from them, and I liked that feel. I do agree with the one night. If we can manage it, it would be longer probably, but we'd only all have to, especially staff I'm talking about, would only have to be there one night, which might be good. I don't know, but I really enjoyed the back and forth and just sort of the free flow of it myself. But I mean, I think that when people come, they already know what they want to ask or talk about, or otherwise they wouldn't be there. So that's just my thought. But I enjoyed it, and I'm very grateful to the staff and Mike, everybody being there and helping us, because sometimes we'd be like, Mike or RJ or whomever. So I appreciated it very much.
It would be wonderful to have it on one night, considering we're going through budget right now, and the staff
Yes.
did not have a lot of time. So, Francis, you had a question or comment?
The one piece that I agree with everything that's been said so far, but another piece that I really appreciated is we had individuals that came that you expected, and they were representing their constituencies and who they were interested in. But I really appreciated the number of individuals that were there that said, oh, I've only lived here 3 months, or I've only lived here 6 months. And so I felt it was a great opportunity for individuals who were new to the community to actually come in and feel like I could have this conversation. And even though some of them didn't even ask questions, but the conversations afterward, made it realize that they were impressed that our community, our council members wanted to meet and be available to the community. I thought that was very important. And so to keep that element, I think would be very good for us to make sure we do.
Nathan?
Yeah, everything that everybody has already said, it was awesome. Watching all 3 on YouTube, one comment that was made is why it wasn't live streamed, and I understand why. So I'm just saying, future, I think some people who weren't able to make it would love to see it live streamed as well. I don't know how that, not technical with it, but.
I think with a different setup, it would make it much more difficult.
Okay.
If we're doing breakout rooms and such.
It was recorded, however, right? And it's available for everybody.
Yeah, it's not that it wasn't recorded, it was that it wasn't live streamed. I think the only other thing I will say is, afterwards, people would come up, and ours was smaller. Ward 1's looked amazing. The three of you just did a great job. So, and of course, Ward 3 was, it's always, some people didn't feel comfortable coming to the mic. And so I think it gave a good opportunity for them to stay after. And I appreciated Mike doing the officiating with that. It really, really helped. So once again, above and beyond. So thank you, Mike.
No other comments?
I just want to say, I thought it was great. And, it really, other than Ward 1, which had mostly Ward 1 citizens, there was a good mix of wards in each of the different sections. So, or sections rather. So it really, I don't think that mattered. The delineation didn't matter at all. And it was interesting though too, I thought, and I'm sorry I had to step out, but if you guys already said this, there was a common thread of discussion and very pertinent really to a lot of what we have been talking about here tonight. And that drove home that same point. And so I think it's important that we continue to have, I don't think you can have too much communication. And I think it was great. And people didn't want to leave. I mean, after we were done, people just wanted to stay and they gathered at the back or gathered at the side, and it was good. I heard a lot of positive comments about it, so thank you, Mike.
Is this something we think we want to do more than once a year?
I think so.
That's one thing you might be looking for.
But
And that was
one
going to be
night.
my
One night,
question.
yep.
Would it please the council if I came back in the first quarter to gather some more additional thoughts and plan for something maybe early in the second quarter
Yeah,
again? Okay.
yes,
I'll put that on the agenda.
thank you.
Okay. No further comments on that? Any new business to come before the council tonight? Megan?
I appreciate it's been a long night, but coming out of the town hall meetings, Councilmember Wright and I, you're right that we had kind of a theme, I'd say, that night, and it was around codes and code enforcement. And one of the items that I'd like to perhaps ask the staff to check into a little bit more has to do with motorized devices or like hoverboards, those in that kind of realm, or scooters, thank you, on paths. It has been brought to my attention that our code is probably in need of updating, and at the very least, looking at how to update it to reflect the current environment and all the different types of motorized vehicles or motorized devices that are on our pathways. So I'm just asking if staff would take a look at that.
Okay.
Just one last thing.
Okay.
And that's a shout out to Chief Optenorth in that a speed patrol thing, trailer, whatever we call them, was placed on Sunnymead like within 2 days after the discussion took place in our Ward 3 meeting. So thank you.
I always like to hear from the police officers how many tickets were issued. And usually, sometimes the people that complain are the ones that get pulled over first. We've seen that in the past. I mean, it's what, they'll complain, and we're out there enforcing, and all of a sudden, well, that's the one that complained, kind of thing. So, yeah. But thank you very much for the enforcement. Appreciate it. With that, any other new business? I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moving second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?